Hey everyone, welcome to a Lovely Yarn podcast. My name is Amber and today's video is all about my favorite free sock patterns. I have 7 tried and true sock patterns that I'm going to share with you all today. These are patterns that I have made multiple times. I've kept them for myself, I've gifted them, and I actually even have most of them here, some samples, to show you all. I'm gonna run through my favorite first, and then I also am including some other free sock patterns that many other knitters have made according to Ravelry. I'm going to share those patterns with you as well. And at the very end of this video, I'm going to give you some gift sock knitting tips. Before we get started, I do want to say if you enjoy my content and if you like hearing about new knitting patterns, knitting inspiration, if you like to see what I'm working on, I would invite you to go ahead and subscribe to my channel and also give this video a thumbs up if you get to the end of it and you think that it was worth your watch. Okay, so let's jump in to some really awesome sock knitting patterns that are all free. The blueberry ribbed waffle socks was one of the very first sock knitting patterns that I ever used. So I am going to show you mine, but I do want to say I did something a bit brave for these being an earlier sock pattern for me in my knitting journey. I actually made these with fingering weight yarn. This pattern is written for DK weight yarn, but I was able to adjust it to be used with a fingering weight. I have knit this in both DK weight and fingering weight. I have 2 pairs of the fingering weight socks. This was my very first pair that I had ever knit. And it has this really nice texture, as you can see. These are well-worn socks. I've had these socks for a very long time. And in fact, whenever they have patching, they have patches in them from me having to mend them. And then this is a pair of fingering weight blueberry ribbed waffle socks that I made for my husband. Now, this pattern is only written for one size, and I think she states it's like a medium size. It's a 52 stitch cast on for the DK weight yarn, but you can adjust that cast on, which is what I did. So I just cast on more stitches to do a fingering weight version of it. And if you wanted to make this in worsted weight yarn, you could just decrease your stitches down. You just want to make sure that you stay within the repeat stitch count for the actual like ribbing pattern. So this is not a downloadable pattern. You actually have to go to a blog post, but it's pretty short and sweet. So you could just copy and paste that into a Word document and print it out. Next up, we have a pattern by Kay Litton, or the Crazy Sock Lady, as many people know her. And they are the Austin socks. I have a pair of these that I made for my daughter. I actually have made this a couple of times, but this is the only pair that we still have in our house. And this is a fingering weight pattern that comes in 3 different adult sizes. And it's a very easily memorizable repeat to get these tiny little like rectangular purl ridges or boxes. It is knit top down, heel flap, and gusset. And I don't remember what the toe is that she calls for, but most of my socks I knit with a grafted toe. The fact that this is a free pattern, comes with 3 different sizes, adult, small, medium, and large, is great because then there is a little bit of guidance and direction on how many stitches to cast on for your foot size. I am going to share with you my very first pair of knitted socks. And I made a mistake when I cast these on, but I used the pattern Basic Ribbed Socks. This is by Kate Atherley, and it's for fingering weight yarn. So these are mine very first pair of socks I ever knit. This was a long time ago, and I remember that because I bought this yarn at a yarn shop in Chincoteague, which is in Virginia here in the United States, and it was a small yarn shop, and it was a husband and wife, and the wife was the yarn dyer. And I don't remember what this colorway was, but I know it was inspired by Chincoteague and by Chincoteague Island. But where I made my mistake is that this yarn is nylon free. And I know that a lot of people knit socks without nylon in them, and I have knit multiple socks without nylon, but I always seem to regret that because no matter what the wool base is, I still get holes in my socks way faster than when I knit with a wool and nylon mix. It's a 3x1 rib that's top down. It has no separate cuff. You just start, you cast on, and you are doing your ribbing the whole way down. And it's a rather simple, it's a hill flap. This one is just plain knitting, plain stockinette. And then I did some sort of, I don't know what this toe is called, but it's basically where you just keep decreasing and then you pull you have very few stitches left and you just thread your yarn through that and pull it tight. This is a great sock for when you're gift knitting, and I'm going to talk about this at the end a bit, but ribbed socks are great because they do have more stretch, so you don't have to worry that much about like leg circumference or foot circumference. Next up, we have the Simple Skip socks. Simple Skip socks. This pattern is by Adrienne Q, and this pattern is written for sport weight yarn, and it comes in size, the pattern page says men's extra small through large. I've knit this pattern multiple times. I only have one pair of socks here in my home because I've gifted the other pairs, but this is a really beautiful, it's going to be a little bit hard to see, but it's a ribbed sock that has in this center, in these little stockinette columns, there's actually this special stitch that goes down the center that is there. You can see it a little bit better right here. That gives this some interesting detail, and it's a really unique stitch, and it's also ribbed. So again, great for knitting for gifts. It has a slip stitch heel. So it's a heel flap and gusset top down, which I'm going to be honest, I think all of these patterns are because that's my preferred way to knit socks. So the thing with this is that when I found this pattern and printed it out and knit these socks, I've had this pattern for a while. I've been using this pattern for several years, actually longer than several years. It was a free pattern. Since then, the designer decided to offer coupon codes. So if you want it for free, she has a coupon code for that. If you want to pay half off, you can use the coupon code for that. The reason she decided to do that is because she did not want to offer advice and respond to emails with questions for a free pattern. So I don't know if you opt to use the 100% off coupon code, if that means you aren't able to reach out to her, but I did not have any problem knitting these. I found them easy to knit. I found them easy to memorize. So I don't foresee, I didn't have any need to reach out to the designer. My most made sock pattern is the Hermione's Everyday Sock by Erica Luder. I've lost count of how many socks I've made from this pattern. I truly have. I only pulled out 2 pairs from my drawer, but I had way more. And the reason I only picked 2 is because I defuzzed all of these socks yesterday, and I just was like, I'm not going to defuzz 10 pairs of socks for this episode. Although I have to say it's very nice to have my socks all depilled and looking newer than what they really are. I love this pattern. It makes such a pretty, interesting detail. It's so easy to memorize, no problem at all with that. It does only come in one size, which is listed as a medium. And it is a top down heel flap and gusset. You use the slip stitch heel on it. And this is just, I love this texture of this sock so much. So that is my first one. I do not know what this yarn is because I knit these so long ago. Same with this one. You probably wouldn't even be able to get this yarn anymore, either of these, because I've had them for such a long time. But see how lovely that is? This is by far my most used and probably my favorite pattern to knit for myself and for others. All right, the Rye sock pattern by Tin Can Knits is up next. I actually don't have a sample to show you because every pair of these I have made, I've gifted. And my mom has a pair and she lives a couple doors down from me. So I almost called her yesterday and was like, hey mom, can I have those socks so I can use them for my podcast? But I just ran out of time. So just believe me, this is a lovely pattern and it comes in 3 different yarn weights. So you have to download each pattern individually on Ravelry, but there are 3 different patterns. So there's one for fingering weight, DK weight, and then worsted weight, which is great. And all three of those patterns are free. The thing I really love about this pattern is that it's quite simple, but then it has a garter panel that runs down the front of the sock, and so it breaks up your knitting. You're just not stockinette the whole way through, and it also looks really cute on your foot. As with all Tin Can Knits patterns, the sizing range is incredible, especially for a free pattern. They have 7 different sizes included in each of the different weights sock patterns, and they range from newborn the whole way up to adult large, so that's fantastic. My last tried and true pattern is the biscuit sock pattern, and I actually am currently working on this particular pattern. It is a pattern by Fluffy Fibers. I don't have any other past ones that I've knit because I've gifted them, but it is a DK weight pattern, and it is so squishy and simple and yet like adorable. Okay, so these are my current ones, and it comes in 2 sizes, so either a 48 stitch or a 56 stitch cast on. I'm doing the 48, which is the smaller one, so you can see that it is a fairly good size. So this is, I would say 48 stitch would be probably best for most women, and maybe for men go up to the 56 stitch cast on. This is knit top down as well, and it uses a Dutch heel, which is a little bit different. I don't know if you can see that on the bottom, how it is a little bit different than just like a regular heel flap and gusset. It is a heel flap, but it's just done a little bit differently as far as when you're doing your actual turns of your heel. And then it finishes up with a star toe. So I am using, for this pair, I'm using the Peyton's Croy sock yarn in Plum. And then for this, I will list the color in the video description, but it is Knit Picks Stroll Tweed, and it's like a mossy green color, but I don't remember the name of it, but I'm holding it double to get more of a DK weight. So yeah, great, cozy pattern. I think these are going to be best used as house socks or in bigger boots. I would not, I think that's probably true of most DK weight socks. I find that for my everyday shoes, I like to wear fingering weight socks, and then if I'm gonna wear my boots, the DK weight are a bit better because they are a bit chunkier and take up a little bit more room in the shoe. Now I have 7 patterns that I've not knitted myself. Some of these I have knitted other sock patterns by the same designer, but they all are very tried and true by other knitters on Ravelry. So I want to share these as well because there's some really beautiful, gorgeous ones. The first pair is a pattern by Summer Lee. If you've watched my latest episodes, you probably know that I'm really digging Summer Lee's sock patterns and her sock project book. It's great. And so I feel like I can pretty confidently say that the I'm So Basic socks would probably be a really good one for a first-time sock knitter. It's a fingering weight pattern. It comes in 4 sizes, small through extra large. That's for adults. It is a vanilla sock, stockinette. But if you've not knitted a sock before, I think this would probably be a pretty good place to start because it's top down, heel flap, and gusset, but Summer Lee actually includes photo tutorials in this pattern, and then she provides links to video tutorials in the pattern if you're having difficulty with any of the techniques or concepts. So that's why I'm saying I think this would be great for a first-time sock knitter, and I just feel like she makes sock knitting so very approachable, and how she explains things just makes a lot of sense to me. This next sock pattern is called Charade, and it is by Sandra Park, and it kind of reminds me of the same kind of concept of the simple skip. It's made using a herringbone ribbing. Although I've never knit this particular pattern, over 4,600 people on Ravelry have. I like the look of this ribbing. I don't think that I've ever done herringbone ribbing. I don't really know what it is, but it is a different kind of ribbing. I like the look of it. It is mid-August, and so we are quickly approaching fall, and this next pair of socks just makes me think all the fall and autumn thoughts. Although I'm not ready for fall yet, okay? I'm a summer lover right here. But these are the Nutmeg socks by Tanya Barley. I don't know if it's probably the name combined with her sample color of yarn. It's like a brown, chestnut, pumpkin-y kind of color. But this is a fingering weight pattern that she actually provided and wrote for 3 different sizes, all adult sizes. And it has a unique cuff, which is why I really wanted to, I mean, this is a beautiful pattern. It looks cabled, the cuff looks cabled, but it's actually not. That is achieved by combining rows of ribbing with a special stitch that's called a gathered stitch. And that gathered stitch is actually used throughout the entirety of the sock. But I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a big fan of cabling socks. I've done it before. I have several pairs of socks that are cabled. I didn't overly enjoy that process for a sock that I'm going to wear on my foot. However, this is nice. It mimics a cable, but it's just done with a gathered stitch. I have 3 patterns left, and they are all designed by the same designer, Olivia of This Handmade Life. She is a wonderful designer. Although I've never knit any of these particular socks, I have bought and knit several of her paid for sock patterns, so you could go check her out and look at those patterns as well. But the next 3 are all fingering weight patterns. They are 2 of them are lace and 1 of them is a cable. So let's just go through those really quickly. The first one is the Will-o'-the-Wisp socks, and it is an easy lace pattern that she states is very easy to memorize. It has a rounded toe, so you don't have to graft your toe shut if you don't enjoy doing that, although you can always do whatever your preferred toe is on any sock that you knit, same as the heel. And then the lace design just goes down the front of the sock. Now, if you want a little bit more of a complicated all over lace design, then I would recommend the Cozy Autumn socks, because that is literally an all over lace sock, which all the lace instructions are charted. So keep that in mind. I know some people don't like reading charts. I love it, but I know some people don't. This pattern is written for 2 different sizes. So there's a 60 stitch cast on and then a 72 stitch cast on for this particular pattern. Although I don't enjoy cabling socks, I did want to include a cabled sock pattern, and Olivia provides one for free. So this pair is called A Little Hocus Pocus, and I almost knit these at one point before I realized I didn't really care for cabling. But it is also fingering weight, as I said, 1 size for this one, and it just has 1 cable, so it's not like overwhelmingly cabled. Just 1 cable that runs down 1 side of each sock. That wraps up the pattern roundup for the free sock pattern. So let me know in the comments down below if you've knit any of those, or if you liked any of those patterns and are now adding them to your Ravelry favorites list. And before I wrap up this episode, I just want to go over a few tips that I always consider whenever I'm knitting a pair of socks for somebody else. First of all is the type of yarn that I use. I am not going to make a pair of socks for somebody that the yarn has to be hand washed, because I don't know that everybody's going to be willing to hand wash their socks. So I always use a superwash yarn, and I always use a superwash yarn that is mixed with nylon or polyamide, something that's going to make the socks more durable. When I gift those socks, I always include a little care tag that says something like machine washable, best result if laid out flat to dry, because I do machine wash most of my socks as long as they're superwash, but then I do always hang them over my drying rack to dry. I could throw them in the dryer, and sometimes they do go in the dryer by mistake, but I have noticed that some of my socks, like this pair included, even though this is superwash yarn, I have noticed a little bit of felting from it going through the dryer after being washed in the machine. Let's talk a little bit about sizing, because that can be difficult when you're knitting them for someone else. When I'm making my own socks, I'm often trying them on as I go so that I can get the correct foot length. That's a little bit hard when you're knitting for someone else, especially if it's going to be a surprise. So I try really hard to find out the shoe size of the person for whom I'm knitting the socks. And I will do this in a sneaky way. So I'll either ask people who are close to them and live in the same home as them and can look at their shoe size. Or if it's somebody that I'm often with, I will try to sneak a look into their shoes when they have them off to see what the size is. Once you find that out, if you write it down in a little book so that you can just have that on record, then you don't have to keep asking in the future. So of course, the best way to get an accurate size is to actually measure the person's foot yourself. So you could do that or have them measure and let you know. You could do that if they know they're getting the socks. Most of the time though, when I knit socks for someone, it's going to be a gift or a surprise. I don't want to make it obvious and I don't want to ask them their shoe size. There is a little cheat chart, and this is put out by the Craft Yarn Council. I will link that down below, and it's a chart. There's a chart for baby, children, and youth. There's a chart for women and then also for men, where if you know their shoe size, the range at least, they provide a chart for how long you should make the length of the foot as well as the circumference of the sock. So that is a tool that you can use when you're in a bind if you at least know the shoe size of the recipient of the socks. Now, I mentioned earlier that ribbed socks make really great gifts because they have more give as far as they stretch, they have negative ease. And so that's really great when you don't really know the circumference that you want to make for somebody. When you knit a stockinette sock, you do have give, but it's very much restricted because of the way the stitches are made. If you have a ribbed sock, you're going to have more give because the sock material, the sock fabric, is going to be stretchier. And so that accommodates a greater range of foot and leg circumferences. If you're really unsure, I would say going with a ribbed sock pattern would be your best bet. Let me know, do you knit socks for others? Are you a sock knitter? I have to say I was a big sock knitter, and I mentioned recently that I took off last year, hardly knit any socks at all, was focused mostly on garment knitting. But this summer I have just been reignited. My passion for sock knitting, I should say, has been reignited, and I am just so excited to cast on all the socks. In fact, I took my sock yarn that I'm going to be casting on because I have a plan to knit socks for gifts for Christmas this year. And so I took a bunch of skeins of my fingering weight yarn to my friend Jody's mill because she has a mill. This is Jody of Flower Hill Fleeces. She let me use her electric ball winder, which was absolutely amazing. And I wound up 5 or 6 skeins of fingering weight yarn last night, so I'm ready to cast on a bunch of socks. So stay tuned in my regular episodes. I'll be sharing those as I work on them. Thank you guys all so much for joining me today. If you want to find me on Instagram, I will link that information down below, as well as Ko-fi, I never know how to pronounce it. If you'd like to support the channel through a donation, that link is also down below, as well as my email for a lovely yarn. Thank you for joining me today. Enjoy your knitting, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.